Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
And today we're going to talk about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Written and directed by George Lucas, starring Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, is that his name? The kid? Anakin Skywalker?
Who cares?
Yeah. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't remember who else, but released in 1999, I can tell you, we always like to start off with our little nostalgic look back, the first time we saw the movie stories. This came out when I was in high school. I believe I was a junior. Yeah, junior in high school.
No, you weren't.
Sure I was. 99, 2000.
I was a freshman.
So I was a sophomore?
Yeah.
When was it? I should have done my research on this. When was it
Around
released?
99.
It was 99, but was
Probably May?
May 19th. You were really close. May 19th.
Yeah.
So it was the very end
of the Star Wars movies have been released in May. That's why when they announced that Episode 7 is going to be a Christmas movie, it was
kind of a big deal.
A big deal, yeah.
Because they've all been summer movies.
Mm-hmm.
I got you.
Like I said, I think they've all been in May.
It could be. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, that being said, I was very excited about it. We'll kind of save our talk about the original trilogy for when we talk about those movies. But I was a gigantic Star Wars nerd at that time of my life. And so that was, I didn't camp out at the theater like some people did for tickets. But my mom actually let me leave school early to go stand in line at the theater to get tickets for the Phantom Menace.
Wow. How was the line?
It wasn't that bad. When I got there, the line was like just down to the end of the building, basically, I think. And I don't recall how long I stood in line for, but it was a few hours, I'm pretty sure. You know what? I say she let me leave school early. I think it might have been she let me arrive to school late. Because I don't remember, it might have been like the first day they were offering advance tickets, and we got there before the theater opened. I could be wrong about that, but I recall standing in line for those tickets and getting it and being very excited about Star Wars Episode 1. And then when I saw it, I was, a kid, and so I loved it. I think I saw it a few more times in theaters. I remember taking my dad to go see it, and I remember seeing it after, I don't know how I convinced people to do this, but I remember after Homecoming, rather than going out to eat or something, we all went and saw Star Wars. So that's my experience with, that's the short version of it, I guess, of my experience with seeing the movie for the first time. But do you remember if you got to see it in the theater or anything? It's
weird. Well, I did get to see it in the theater. Twice, I believe. But I'm pretty sure it's very cloudy for some reason. Which is weird. You'd think this one would have been. And I was a huge Star Wars fan, not necessarily at the time that it came out. I was, but my big Star Wars period was about 2 years prior, when I was in 7th grade.
I think it's probably the same for me. Not like I said, that's when they re-released
special
exactly.
editions.
Yep.
And I actually still have my original cuts on VHS tape.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. You've got Han Solo shooting first.
And some people said that they'd never released those, but I have them on DVD. They released like the special edition trilogy on DVD. It might have been like the first release of the DVD or something, and people got all upset because they put Hayden Christensen at the end of Return of the Jedi, and Greedo shot first and all that stuff. And so a little bit later, I don't know if it was a year later or what, they put out these 2-disc editions of the trilogy that you could buy separately, and on the second disc has the original theatrical version. However, it's a matted 4:3 picture. It's not an anamorphic widescreen. So if you watched it on a widescreen TV, it would have the black bars like all around the picture.
Gotcha, yeah. The one that I picked up was available in full screen and widescreen, but at the time, I did not understand the concept.
Yeah.
And I was like,
You're a
why
dumb kid.
would I want... Yeah, I was like, why would I want those black bars on top? So I have the full screen version.
I did the same
4x3.
thing, and I remember thinking that too. I had a friend who bought... I remember buying like the special edition trilogy on VHS, and you could buy full screen or widescreen, and it was like, I think one of them was gold and the other was silver. I don't remember which was which. But I remember I had a friend buy the widescreen version. I remember thinking, like, why? And he's like, you see more, man. And I was like, okay. Like, it didn't make any sense to me at the time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a little bit later, not that long, not that much later, because I remember I did buy, there's a few VHS I started buying widescreen before everything kind of got switched over to DVD. But yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
I remember I had one movie I had, Mrs. Doubtfire,
which starts off in widescreen.
Yes.
Yeah.
You picked up on that too. What is up with that?
I don't know why, especially Mrs. Doubtfire, why they did that. But I remember renting that movie when it was on VHS, and I remember complaining. I don't know why this memory like sticks out, but I remember complaining to my mom, being like, "Is the whole movie going to be like this?" Because those black bars really annoyed me back then.
Uh-huh.
Again, as a child, you're not really understanding that that's how it is in the theater, and you have a square TV in the,
Yeah.
And then after it's like after the opening credits and during the party scene that he throws for his kid when Sally Field comes home is like when it goes to 4x3.
I remembered it being in the Pierce Brosnan scene.
Well, isn't he introduced like way later?
Yeah, no, it was.
They have
about
to get divorced
10 minutes
first.
in.
It's how many minutes in?
It's about 10 minutes. It's when he goes and meets her at work. I think it's before she goes home to find the party.
Oh, all right. Well, if that's the case, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. But it's definitely the opening scene with him doing the voiceover of the cartoon and the opening credits, I believe, is all widescreen. And I don't know why. I'm gonna have to watch the movie again to see if there's something about it that like requires widescreen viewing. And maybe it's just the placement of the opening titles. If it says, Robin Williams' name is like in the bottom left corner or something.
I didn't think of that, yeah.
So it could just be because of the titles. But like I said, I have to watch it again to look into it. But I do remember that. And I remember some movies, some VHS, not many, but some VHS doing that. Like where it would start off in widescreen and then go to full screen shortly afterwards.
Yeah. That was the only one I ever picked up on.
Yeah.
But you've seen about 1,000. No, not 1,000. I'd say 4,000 more movies than I have.
I don't know if that's true, but...
Well, how many do you own?
Close to 2,700.
Oh, yeah? I thought it was more than that. I thought it was a lot more than that.
No, 2,700. But part of the reason that it's slowed down is because I've run out of space.
I gotcha. Are you still sticking with DVDs, or did you...
I really wish Blu-rays came in the same... I know why they don't come in the same packaging as DVDs, because they... people would mistakenly buy Blu-rays when they don't have a Blu-ray player and things like that. But I really wish that they would come in DVD cases, which Disney did for a little while. Disney movies would come out...
Right,
and
you could
buy
both.
you could do DVD packaging or you could do Blu-ray packaging. And if everybody did that, I would buy Blu-rays more often, I think. Because Blu-rays do tend to have all the special features on them now. And the only reason why I do tend to buy DVDs is because, number one, I think it's just an aesthetic reason. They look better on my shelf, but also because I can watch DVDs in my bedroom because I don't have a Blu-ray player in there. However, a lot of Blu-rays do come with the DVD as well. So it just depends on the movie. If it's a kind of a visual spectacle, I will buy it on Blu-ray. A superhero movie or, I don't know, whatever. But I do tend to buy DVD more than Blu-ray, especially because DVDs are cheaper as well.
True.
So
I didn't get my first HD TV until probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And for a good year or so, I still had that awesome feeling when I was watching HD. I was like, you can see it.
Yeah.
But now I've gotten used to it, and when I actually go back and watch standard definition, I'm like, ugh. So, I don't know.
And I haven't become quite that much of a snob. Like I do, not saying you're a snob, but I do notice a difference. But it's not so much of a difference that it bothers me. If it's a really old DVD and it's not like anamorphic widescreen, that's what really kind of bugs me. And because I can change the setting on my TV and kind of zoom it in a little bit. But then I feel like then the quality is even worse because it's like magnified. And I do notice, Blu-ray does look better than DVD. Right now I've got Star Wars playing on my TV and it's the Blu-ray version and it looks good, but it almost looks too good because I noticed this time around that Jar Jar Binks looks bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So getting back into Star Wars, I hadn't seen this movie in quite some time. I'd seen the beginning. I think I popped in the Blu-ray when I first bought it and watched like the first few minutes of it. Maybe the first, 20 minutes maybe. Might have fast-forwarded to the pod race. I don't know. Point is, I hadn't seen the whole thing in quite some time. And I'm just got to say right off the bat, it doesn't hold up for me. It was kind of a little bit of a chore to get through this time around. I
watched it maybe a year ago, and I had that feeling. Everyone hated Phantom Menace.
Uh-huh. Well, not everyone. I really liked it when I saw it, but again, I was a kid and everything Star Wars, I was just eaten up.
Well, I think most people liked it when it first came out.
Yeah. Once they let it settle,
right?
They kind of
That never really happened to me. I never enjoyed it as much as the original trilogy,
right?
But I liked the movie. And about a year ago, like I said, when I watched it, that was really the first time I was like, yeah. I'm kind of seeing what people are talking about now. But rewatching it for this, it was kind of in between that feeling and me liking it. So I don't, it's weird.
Uh-huh.
Like, we'll save that for later, but I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Right now.
Well, maybe that's, maybe a year from now I'll sit and watch it again and have the feeling that you're feeling now. Because for me, in my brain, I never really thought it was as bad as everybody was saying. I feel like a lot of times, it's kind of popular to rip something apart. There was that video on YouTube that came out not too long ago, a few years ago, by like Red Letter Media, I think it was, where he did like a 70-minute, kind of video essay about why Phantom Menace was just so terrible, basically. It's really funny if you haven't seen it. It's worth watching if you have the time. I think he split it up into 7 10-minute videos, I believe. It's really funny. The guy has a weird sense of humor, but he makes a lot of good points. And so I hadn't watched the movie since watching that, but I never hated it as much as that guy did, or however, as much as the internet kind of seems to. I always thought, it was made maybe a little bit more geared towards children than the original trilogy was, but I thought it was still a decent movie, and it was entertaining. So sitting down to watch it this time, I, enjoyed the beginning of it, and then it just kind of, and maybe it's there's still really great moments. The pod race is still entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm.
The lightsaber duel at the end, Duel of the Fates.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, that's the best part.
That's one of the reasons why I enjoy the movie, I think.
It's easily the best part of the movie. But it's all the other stuff in between that I think is just so kind of boring. The whole Senate thing and with Chancellor Valorum and the voting no confidence, and then the whole just like trade federation dispute. It's just, I don't know, to me it just seemed to drag this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking about good aspects of the film, though, I thought the casting was really well done. Ewan McGregor as a young Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think, kind of was pretty perfect.
Yep,
I remember liking it,
and he gets better throughout the
trilogy.
Yeah,
and that's actually now that we watched this one, I'm actually kind of excited to go back and watch part 2 and 3 again because I don't think I've seen either of those in maybe since the theater. So it has been a long time since I've seen either of those films.
Yeah, but you're right. Both of those films I have seen maybe twice each.
Yeah. And I remember liking... I mean, the second one, I think, is also going to be boring, because if my memory, is correct, it's pretty slow as well. But I remember really liking the third one when it came out.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, and I was going to save, but I'll go ahead and say it. Attack of the Clones is not probably, I would, at this point, consider it might change when we watch it, but it's my least favorite.
Right.
I liked Phantom Menace better than Attack of the Clones. The third one was definitely the best out of the three.
Yeah.
And I kind of consider it halfway on quality in between the new trilogy and the old.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm interested to watch this, because you're right. It'll almost be like rewatching them, not for the first time, but I don't really remember them that well.
Right, exactly. Same here. It won't be the first time you've seen it, but it'll be like a revisit. Yeah. It'll be like rewatching it for the first time.
Yeah. Phantom Menace, I had watched. I've probably seen that maybe 20 times.
Yeah, and I think I must have, when it first came out on DVD, I think I must have watched it a couple times, because I do have a better memory of this movie than I do the other two. And part of that could be because I saw it so many times in the theater. I know I saw part 2 twice in the theater, and I think I only saw the third one once in the theater. I could be wrong, but I definitely saw this one the most. So I have a better memory of this film than the others. What this movie really reminded me of was this old computer game that we played that was, I think it was just the Phantom Menace. It was just based on the first movie. But those destroyer droids that come out, that roll out, and then they have like that shield.
Right.
Those were super hard to kill in the game. And I remember being on Naboo and like running around with the princess and stuff. It was really weird. I totally forgotten about that game until we were watching the movie, because they did a pretty good job of kind of recreating those scenes for the video game, for the computer game. So that's another reason why this movie I might remember it more, is because I also played that game.
Okay. Yeah, I never played the game. So what are some of your least favorite besides the Senate stuff?
Well, I think just the overall. What's the plot of this movie really? What's the story? It's like there's a trade dispute going on, and so Naboo is not being able to get some of their shipments of whatever.
Right.
And so that kind of spawns this whole thing. I don't even know really exactly where it goes from there. Like, I know the Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn, played by Liam Neeson, who is also one of my favorite probably things about this movie, just because
yes, he's great.
He's really good in it. And Obi-Wan Kenobi are sent to kind of speed along the negotiations. That doesn't work, and they end up on Naboo. And I guess they need to get to the Queen, and so Jar Jar Binks, gets them through the planet core to the Queen. And then after that, they leave. I can't remember. They're trying to get the Queen somewhere, but I don't remember exactly where. And then they end up on Tatooine, and they meet Anakin. And then it kind of begins that whole thing.
Right.
So I think the story is just, I feel like it's just messy, kind of. Maybe it's just, it's like geared towards kids, but then it has this whole thing about taxation and
right. I was getting ready to bring that up. That's something, it's supposed to be geared towards kids, but yeah, it's got all of the political stuff that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so
why that would be there.
Right. Episode 4 had such a nice kind of simple but exciting story, about the saving the princess and the battle plans for the Death Star and stuff like that. It was like, easy to understand, I guess. I'm not saying that this movie's like, I think it's overly complicated. It's more complicated than it needs to be, I think, is the problem.
Maybe. Now that I'm thinking about it, the whole point of the trilogy, aside from being the story of Anakin becoming Darth Vader, is the creation of the Empire.
Right.
And I think George Lucas trying to show that it happens, in the powerhouses,
right?
And it also happens under people's noses,
right?
Because they don't even see it coming.
Yeah, and it's definitely kind of setting up who the Emperor, how the Emperor got his power and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I could understand that, I suppose.
But it's boring. I agree with you there.
Right.
It is boring. What did you think about the Metachlorians? There's a big uproar about that.
Yeah. Again, when I first saw the movie, I kind of let it slide. But watching it this time around, I really wish that hadn't been introduced. It really kind of takes away a lot of the magic behind the Force. The Force used to be this thing that, like, it almost was this type of thing that anybody could kind of do. Like, the Force was strong with certain people.
Mm-hmm.
But it never was a genetic thing. It never was like, at least in my mind, it wasn't like, Luke Skywalker has metachlorians, so he can do it. But, you don't have metachlorians, so you'll never be a Jedi. It was...
Well, according to Qui-Gon Jinn, everything has metachlorians.
So it's just a different level.
Right.
Well, see, it's still... it comes down... It makes it... I know this is weird, but it brings it to a different... It's like takes it to a scientific level rather than kind of a, like I said, magical level, which... I think I'm explaining it poorly, but I just liked it better when there wasn't such a thing. When it was more, something that could be kind of taught almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I never had a big problem with it. And it was the way you just put that sentence about it being now a science thing as opposed to a magic thing. And yeah, that you're right. It does kind of take out that just fantasy feel of the original films.
Right. You remember when Han Solo, when they're on the Millennium Falcon and Obi-Wan is teaching Luke, and Han even says something like, if you want to put your trust into a mystical force or whatever, it's like some people believe in it almost and some people don't. But
that's a good point too. Yeah, I mean, if it's a science, then...
Yeah, with metachlorians, it's something that just, is. It's not something that one can necessarily maybe believe in.
Right. Yeah. But to me, though, it does not affect that much to me, the story or the feeling of the Force or Jedi and all that stuff.
It really doesn't, and it really, if I recall correctly, because we just talked about how we haven't seen the episode 2 and 3 in a while. I think this is the only movie where it's introduced and talked about, right?
I believe so.
And I feel like the only reason that it was introduced was so George Lucas could tell the audience that this kid's... Qui-Gon says Anakin has more, or I think it's actually technically Obi-Wan who says it, has more metachlorians than, or has a higher metachlorian count than even Yoda.
Right.
So they're basically telling the audience, the Force is really strong with this one.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. That's what it was.
And I wish he had gone about a different way of doing it rather than coming up with this whole metachlorian thing being in your blood. I didn't. Yeah, like I said, back then I didn't really care, and I really don't think it. I mean, it doesn't hurt my love for the original trilogy by any means, but it's just something I wish had never been introduced.
Mm-hmm. Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks, here's another thing that I didn't hate about the movie back then. And actually, you know what? I still don't hate Jar Jar Binks. He's over the top, he's annoying, but he's not nails on the chalkboard annoying like he is to some people.
I agree with you.
I think he's I think he's there, for comedic purposes for the younger audience. And I get it, there's the fart joke in it, and that doesn't bother me really. He's just kind of a dumb character, and I'm glad they didn't really use him again past this movie. Like, he shows up, I think, in 2 and 3, but he has maybe one line or something.
I wonder if the reaction hadn't been so bad.
Would he been a bigger character?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, I mean, Jar Jar Binks is lame, but he's not the main problem I have with this movie.
I actually read the book
Phantom Menace?
Yeah. Not too long ago, actually. And what I gathered while I was reading it was Jar Jar Binks is supposed to be disliked by the reader.
Really?
I can't remember what... I'm trying to remember what brought that up. I think it was basically the way... And he kind of does it in the movie, Obi-Wan, his reaction. But someone else comes along. I guess it was Anakin, when Anakin comes on board. And then it talks about what Obi-Wan's thinking. And basically he's like, another annoying character Qui-Gon is bringing along with us. So, yeah, I think... And you find out later in the story that even though you don't like this guy, he was essential to them having a success.
Yeah.
And I think that might have been... At least that's kind of how it came across in the book, but I think you're right. I think in the movie it was like, this is for kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if he was intended to be disliked as much as he was or not.
I don't know either. That whole Gungan species has kind of an interesting way of talking. You know, like the leader, you know, he's got the kind of thing going on, and he does the whole like
right,
which is also kind of silly.
Right.
So it's just like that whole species is kind of an annoying concept that George Lucas came up with. But I do know that like meeting Jar Jar Binks was essential because they go, you know, they escape from the, I guess the battle droids belong to the Trade Federation, or are they a part of the Senator Palpatine's something or other?
I think they're the Trade Federations.
So they're getting away from they're basically trying to escape from the Trade Federation, and Jar Jar Binks does help them go down to, what's the name of that underwater city? Gunga?
We'll go with that.
Sure. And they are Gungans, so I'm guessing they're Gunga or whatever. But and then after that, of course, they can make their way to Naboo, trying to get to the princess or queen. Excuse me, the Queen Amidala. So I guess he's kind of necessary. I don't know why after that he still came along. I guess again just to bring comedic relief, but he really just gets into more trouble that they have to save him from and all that stuff. So
they make him general.
Right. Yeah, which was weird. We'll kind of get to that whole battle scene, I guess, in a little bit. Yeah. Going back to performances, Jake Lloyd, I think is the name of the boy. I apologize if I get it wrong. Oh, that reminds me. I meant to do this in the last episode. I'm going to do it real quick. I have a correction. In our Batman Returns episode, I said that the screenplay was by Warren Scarron. That was incorrect. I assumed it was. I couldn't remember. It's actually by a guy named Daniel Waters, with a story by Sam Hamm and Daniel Waters. Sam Hamm and Warren Scarron wrote the first Batman. So I just got a little confused there. So I just wanted to throw out a correction.
Good job.
So nobody thinks I'm dumb.
Nobody thinks that.
Somebody started the Batman Returns episode and was like, and I was like, I think it was written by Warren Scarron. They're like, nope, off, delete, unsubscribe. So anyway, back to this movie. I forgot what I was even saying. What was I saying?
Performances.
Oh yeah, Jake Lloyd. If I'm getting the name wrong, I apologize, but I think it's Jake Lloyd. What do you think of him as the young Anakin Skywalker?
Oh, God. You know, it's weird, because I actually think, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I think I liked him a little bit better for some reason this viewing. I've never really liked him. His lines are awkward. Yeah. His acting is awkward. Of course, he's a kid actor, but he just... Watching it this time, though, I was actually not as critical with him.
Right.
I felt like he did a little bit better of a job than I remembered.
Yeah.
But still, he has those awkward moments, especially in the towards the end, the last battle scene when he's in the ship and it takes off, and he's talking to R2, and just little lines here and there. He just It just doesn't come across right.
Right. I have a friend who just flat out hates this kid's performance in this movie. And I don't hate it. I think, like you said, I think, it's not terrible. There's just bad moments out of all of it.
I'd say the bad moments do outnumber the good ones, though.
Well, that could be. I think part of that is just bad writing. Like, I remember one of the lines that always bugged me is when... What's the name of the character who runs the store that Anakin works at?
That's the... what's his name?
It doesn't matter. He tells him... Right. He tells him, clean up this thing and then you can go home. And he goes, yippee!
Yeah, he does that
and
twice.
That's just like, this is dumb. Nobody says that. And so I feel like that's more George Lucas's fault than the kid's fault. Mm-hmm. The kid's saying the line that was given to him and he's doing the best he can with it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And there are some lines, yes, during the end when he's flying that ship around that are just, those are more annoying.
Whoops!
Yeah, and so, I understand child actors might be hard to give direction to, but yeah, I wonder if George Lucas was just like, I like it, or if he tried to give the kid a little direction and he just couldn't do it or something. I don't know. So, but for the most part, I don't think he really bothered me too much.
No, there's when he sang goodbye to his mom. I liked that scene.
Yeah.
And some of the scenes with Qui-Gon Jinn are kind of cool. Well, I love how one of the things I love about Qui-Gon Jinn and his character is when he's talking to Anakin, he'll get down on like one knee and get eye level with him.
Yeah,
and it just shows how much he really cares for this kid and is treating him like a human being. And I don't know if that was intended for the character's personality, or if it was just to be able to line up, frame the shot better.
Right.
But it comes across that he, he'll put his hand on his shoulder, and it just seems like he's genuinely caring.
Yeah.
For not just his kid, but just people in general. And
right.
That was a strong characteristic for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I like that as well. Aside from the things we've talked about, what are some of the parts of the movie that you dislike, if anything else?
Well, we brought up one was Anakin's performance. Mm-hmm. And it's not just him. There's several scenes throughout the movie where even like Obi-Wan and Queen Amidala are just very dry. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like they were reading the script at a reading so many times that they just got used to talking like that.
Right.
And I think I remember that being like that strongly in Attack of the Clones too. But yeah, that happens. Podcast was good, or the pod racing was good.
Yeah.
The huts, like having the huts in it, but
right. That's the beginning of the pod race.
Yeah, I mean, they look bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I want to talk about.
Yeah, the CGI is subpar. Of course, granted, back when this came out, it was relatively new.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember this movie is, 15 years old? So, the CG looks pretty good for being 15 years old, but, and so I guess it's not really, I guess I can't really fault the movie for it. I was going to say that was one of the things I noticed this time around was Jar Jar Binks, you can tell he's not really there. He looks borderline cartoony. The CG just isn't quite up to par. There was a couple of moments with, I want to say it was when they're on Tatooine, walking around like that Mos Eisley type city. There's a large creature that walks behind them, and if you look at their feet, if you look at the creature's feet, you can tell like it doesn't look like he's actually touching the ground. It's like this weird, like they had trouble with that, obviously. And so, yeah, CGI has obviously come a long way, and it'll be very interesting to see what the new Star Wars is like. But But yeah, that was a disappointment that it doesn't hold up as much. But like I said, it's 15 years old, so you can't really blame the movie for it too much. I did notice on this viewing that Lucas did one of his, things that he's notorious for by going back and changing something. When this movie came out, Yoda was a puppet in the Jedi Council scenes. I
was wondering about that.
He was a puppet, and he didn't look very good.
Really?
Well, he didn't look the same. They were trying to make him look like a younger version.
Right.
But he looked weird. So when this movie first came out, Yoda was a puppet. And I believe, Frank Oz was, if he wasn't the puppeteer, he was at least voicing Yoda, which he does throughout the whole trilogy. But he was like a younger version of Yoda, so he looked a little weird. And I guess George Lucas never cared for it, because either that or he just wanted to kind of match, because Yoda is all CG, I'm pretty sure, in the second and third movie, so he just kind of wanted to match it to maybe look the same. So he went back into this movie and he took out the puppet Yoda and replaced it with a CG Yoda, which does look more like the Yoda from the second and third movie. But I remember thinking, that's kind of is just lame. It's just one of those, it's like the whole thing people have a problem with him changing things from the original trilogy. It's like,
right,
that's not the way I remember it.
Right.
Let the movie have its flaws. Like, it's not the way you wanted it to be, or how you envisioned it, or whatever. Perhaps it's there's a great documentary, actually. I think you told me about it, called "The People versus George Lucas."
Right,
and that documentary. For anybody who hasn't seen it, is definitely worth checking out. It was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but the whole basis for that documentary is like, who does the movie belong to, I guess, Is it George Lucas and he can change it anytime he wants, or is it once it's released, is it the audience's movie and they have a say on whether or not it can be changed? It's a really interesting documentary, but
right, and I don't even know if the question was so much for any movie. Once
just
it's
those
released,
movies.
It's just the fact of how big Star Wars was.
Right.
And how much of a cultural impact it's had.
Right.
That changing it is literally almost like changing history.
Yeah, yeah. And I giving a little bit of a spoiler whenever we do episode 4, 5, and 6. I never really saw all of those movies all the way through, perhaps, until I saw them re-released in the theater. And when they were re-released in the theater, they had those changes. And so I never quite understood why everybody was so up in arms about it. And now that it's kind of... This is obviously much different because the Phantom Menace is not nearly as, loved as the original trilogy. But now that I've kind of been able to experience it, watching this film and seeing the Yoda puppet being taken out, I was kind of like, oh...
Yeah.
I kind of wish, it's not the way I remember seeing it. I kind of wish even though the Yoda puppet did look kind of weird, I wish that it was still in there. And right. I've got it on DVD, and I'm pretty sure it is, but still, it's just one of those things that's just like, it's like changing history. It's changing your memory of it, really. It's very strange.
Yeah. And such a big movie.
Yeah.
It'd be like them going and taking out the T-Rex in Jurassic Park.
Right, or every time there was like
imagine?
the animatronic T-Rex, they replaced it with a CG one or something. Oh my god! Oh yeah, I'd be furious. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You want to talk about Darth Maul?
Yeah, I love Darth Maul.
Darth Maul was one of the coolest looking characters I think I'd ever seen, and I'm pretty sure I got to see. I think you get to see. Okay, let's go back a little bit even more. When the first trailer was released for this movie, everybody lost it. Like, I remember the opening shot to that trailer. It was like it faded in, and you saw the foggy marsh of, I believe it's of Naboo. And then I think a title came up that was
little did people know.
Right. The title came up and it said something like, every. Something to the effect of like every legend has an origin or every legend has a beginning or something like that. And I think you got a glimpse of Darth Maul in that trailer. And this is also like the beginning of the internet. So we didn't have trailers on YouTube that we could just check out all the time like we can now.
Right.
This was, I remember seeing it on the internet. It was probably like a tiny little screen, and it probably took 3 hours to download. But I remember watching it more than one time, and I remember seeing it for the first time and just being blown away by it. And I remember thinking Darth Maul looked so awesome.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait to see more of him.
He was just, no pun intended, he was menacing.
Yeah. They did a pretty good job with him in the movie because they just kind of tease at him for most of the film.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And they left that mystery the entire time.
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing George Lucas, I think, did really well with this film. Is, there was like one scene where he has a little dialogue. I remember the intro scene, it's during one of those holographic transmissions. They're talking to the Emperor, and then he just shows up from behind.
Yes.
And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
You see a quick fight scene with Qui-Gon on Tatooine, but it's not until the very end. It's not until they're on Naboo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not until they're on Naboo with Duel of the Fates, John Williams, that we really see how awesome Darth Maul really is. And when you see that double-sided lightsaber, I think my heart was like, that was just the coolest thing I think I'd ever seen.
You know what sucks? This is why I don't think I saw it for a couple weeks. Because I saw a TV spot, and they showed him opening up the double lightsaber before I saw the movie. So I knew it was coming.
And that
part still gives me chills, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like even if you know it's coming, it's still just, we had never seen a double-sided lightsaber.
Right, there was no
before.
concept of that.
Right.
Then he kind of goes crazy with it later in the other two. You've got the Count Dooku, like Kane lightsaber,
and there's the guy from the third movie, is it Darth Sidious or something like that? And he's got like 6 arms.
Right.
So he's got like 6 lightsabers, and they're all flying around. Yeah, he goes a little nuts over
that kind of takes out the coolness of the double light. Well, no, it doesn't, because those other ideas aren't cool. But I mean, the Kane's okay with Count Dooku, I guess. But
right.
But yeah, it kind of takes away the danger of the double lighted lightsaber when you go through all that other stuff. But yeah, just that moment and the death of Qui-Gon Jinn.
Mm-hmm.
That's always still just.
I will point out, there's this is one of the things, I didn't come up with this myself. I don't know if I wonder if maybe I would have thought of it eventually. But that YouTube video that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast about Red Letter Media doing that 70-minute kind of breakdown of the film, he points out that in the beginning of the movie, when they are getting away from those destroyer droids, they do that real quick, like, sprint to the side of the screen. It almost looks like they're moving at super speed, right?
Uh-huh.
If you recall what I'm talking about. I have to blame that on either poor staging or something. Like, I feel like that was a mistake that they had to kind of fix in post-production. And I don't know if necessarily the Jedi were, the two, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, were supposed to be able to have, like, super speed. But if they are, there's a kind of a plot hole, because then at the end, when Obi-Wan especially is running towards Qui-Gon and Darth Maul, and there's those weird force field doors that keep opening and closing.
Right.
That keeps Obi-Wan from getting to Darth Maul.
Right.
But it shouldn't, if he can move that quickly. If he can move that quickly, he should have been able to make it down that whole hallway.
Gotcha.
In a flash of a second, so.
I actually don't think I know what you're referring to at the beginning of the movie.
Obviously, when you get a chance.
Yeah.
Watch the beginning of the movie when Qui-Gon, you remember when Qui-Gon sticks the lightsaber into the door and he's trying to get into the door? Right after that, those destroyer droids show up, the ones that roll. And Obi-Wan says something like, "Destroyer droids," and there's like, "Okay, let's get out of here." And right as they start shooting, you see them jump, basically, from one side of the screen to the other to get out of the way. It's like this quick movement. It's very unnatural, and it seems like they have super speed. Like, they do it, like, very quickly. I mean, obviously, I think there is some sort of... They have, like... it's the Force. Because in that scene at the end, when they're fighting Darth Maul, Obi-Wan can jump from one ledge to the other, which is...
Right.
Much higher than any normal person can jump. So they do have some, they do kind of have like these superpowers, the Force, I guess. But for whatever reason, they use super speed kind of in the beginning of the film, but then they don't utilize it at the end when it seems like it's really important. Okay. So that's why I feel like it was a mistake on George Lucas's part. I feel like, it was just something wasn't right, and they had to fix it in post. And so they made them move quickly. Like, it wasn't something that was written into the script. That's just my theory. But I don't know.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, that scene at the end where he gets, locked out, that's a very important moment.
Right, obviously.
So, yeah, that would... I would rather the Jedi not be able to move quick like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And
I'm okay with the jumping.
The jumping is fine. Mm-hmm. And if they just didn't do that in the beginning of the film, then it wouldn't have been an issue. Yeah. Anyway, that it doesn't bother me that much. The whole Duel of the Fates scene between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul, like I said before, is easily the best part of the film. And I think that's the main reason why I loved the movie so much when I was younger. Every time I left the theater, I loved it, and it's probably because of that scene, mostly.
Yeah. That scene just, even today, just awesome.
Very well done.
Probably, I'm going to need to watch episode 3 again, the very last battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan, but
yeah,
it's probably a toss-up between that and Duel of the Fates of my favorite scene in all of the new trilogy.
Right. And I did love in Attack of the Clones when Yoda, because it was the first time we ever saw Yoda in action. Seeing him fight Count Dooku. I have a feeling now I might not like it as much because I feel like it's probably a little cheesy with Yoda jumping up around and doing like all these flips and everything.
The first time I saw that, there was something wrong with it to me.
Really? First time I saw it, because Yoda was always my favorite character for before I saw the prequels. And I remember having arguments with certain people. They were like, Yoda doesn't do anything. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Yoda trains Luke Skywalker to become to become an actual like Jedi Master, blah, blah, blah. And so it was nice to see Yoda actually kind of have like a lightsaber fight, kind of actually, quote unquote, do something. So that was fun for me, but yeah, I think I'm not looking forward to rewatching episode 2 and seeing that because I think it's just going to make me be like, this is stupid.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about, like, you could tell like it was cool, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's almost to the point where you're like, he's so powerful and fast. Why doesn't Yoda just go do everything?
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about episode 2. During the Duel of the Fates scene, Lucas splits it up into 3 different kind of segments.
Right.
We have the Duel of the Fates scene. I'm calling it Duel of the Fates, by the way, because that's the name of the track that John Williams composed for that scene, which is probably the best music from the whole movie.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very iconic.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite pieces from John Williams, period.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's really, really good. So he has that, and then there's the Anakin Skywalker accidentally, the ship is on autopilot, and he's flying into space and going into battle scene. And then there's the land battle on Naboo with the Gungans.
I actually kind of like that scene.
The Gungan land? Okay.
I like the shield generator that they pull up.
Right.
And, the tanks start firing on it, and they're like, we're good. But obviously they know they're not, because then that's when they bring out the droids. Uh-huh. And they start marching down slowly. I don't understand. I picked up on it this time. If they had just gone to the edge rim of the shield, the Naboo. Uh-huh. No, the Gungans, I'm sorry. And had kind of just done like a a man wall, like
right?
holding hands, to where the droids could not come through the shield, they would have been fine. Because then the droids couldn't have gotten through and started shooting.
Yeah. Maybe they were scared. I don't know. On one hand, I like the land battle scene. It's something different. We hadn't really seen. There was the Hoth battle scene in Empire, but well, I guess there's also the Ewok fight scene and everything. I was gonna say we hadn't had really like a big open kind of
this one's
land
huge,
battle.
This is
very big,
armies.
and it's in a big open area.
Yeah,
rather than like in the forest or something. So it is a little different than anything we'd really seen before. So I like it, but I think this scene and the one with Anakin both just pale in comparison to the Darth Maul lightsaber fight.
Yeah, but that one's just so epic. I mean,
right.
It's really hard to put something up against that. I also like how they utilized what would you call it? The thing that was powering the droids, and how when Anakin, which was kind of cheesy, blew it up, then they just all drop.
Yeah,
I liked that a lot.
They make Anakin out to be like kind of an expert pilot even at a young age. But in that scene, it's not really so much about him being granted, it's a ship he's never flown before, but he does everything by accident.
Yep.
In that scene. And so it's like big coincidence that, he saves the day. Because really, he didn't even mean to go out into space in the first place.
Right.
So it's a little cheesy.
Qui-Gon told me to stay in this cockpit, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the space ship sequences in that, like the external shots and things are pretty, nice to look at. Like visually, they're pretty good. But yeah, I think out of the three sequences, I don't know which one I like less: the Gungan battle or the Anakin saving the day. Probably Anakin saving the day, just because it is so cheesy.
Yeah, like I said,
but then you got Jar Jar Binks, you got him falling around and like getting a robot stuck on his foot and stuff, and so you kind of got a bunch of cheesiness there.
I did like that as a kid. I thought that was a cool scene as a kid. But yeah, not so much now. Yeah, with the droids, I remember thinking younger age. Now it makes sense, but and I think they addressed it too. Why would they go with the stormtroopers later on if they could just build out thousands of machines? But of course you got them getting shut down, but there's ways around that, especially when it happens to you once. You can learn from your mistakes. But yeah, they're just not as
reliable.
Yeah.
There's one moment with battle droids that is stupid, and I'm almost ashamed of admitting that I like it. But it makes me laugh even now. It made me laugh this time around. Or not like laugh out loud, but I kind of chuckled to myself, I guess. But it's the part where I don't even remember what Qui-Gon says, or it might be even Obi-Wan, but he says something to a battle droid, and he goes, let me think. You're under arrest. Like that part, it's something a robot would obviously never do, but I love the robot using sarcasm. For whatever reason, makes me laugh.
Right.
But,
yeah. I remember that.
But then there's other times like Roger. Like it just seems kind of cheesy. The battle droids are almost kind of annoying as well. But that, for whatever reason, that one part always makes me kind of chuckle.
Yeah. When they're going through the core, and that thing tries to eat their that sea creature,
right?
Tries
There's
to
always
eat their
a bigger
ship.
fish.
Yes. And then a gigantic, like dinosaur-esque creature comes out and eats them, and there's always a bigger fish. I liked that. That was a good moment.
Like I said, there's some excellent moments in this movie. It's just surrounded by a bunch of boring scenes.
Mm-hmm. And some scenes that aren't boring if they were just better executed.
Right. So, I think I was going to say, I think the good outweigh the bad, but I'm not entirely sure. I think it kind of evens out a little bit. It's like on a scale, and it's just like, it doesn't really tip one way or the other for me.
The Duel of the Fates scene really helps this movie out.
Yeah. So, for me, because of all those kind of negative things we said about it, but also because of all the positive things we said about it, I think I'm going to go right in the middle of the road with my rating and give it a C.
A C.
Yeah.
There's something about this movie. Just like Qui-Gon said, there's something about this boy. There's something about this movie, not quite as to the degree he was talking about Anakin, but there's something that I just still, as annoying as it can be to watch, as many of the flaws you see in it, I can still get some enjoyment out of this movie, enough to where I think I want to give it 3.5 stars.
Out of 5.
Out of 5, correct.
3.5 out of 5. Yeah, well, I mean, just listening to what you said, there's something about this movie. It does kind of make me want to give it a little bit of a higher grade, like maybe a C+. But, I don't know, maybe I'll watch it a year from now and see what kind of taste it leaves in my mouth and go from there. But I think for right now, I'm going to stick with my C.
Cool. I was going to say, you thinking about changing your score. I'm not going to, because I've already said it, and I think I'm going to leave it where it is. But as time has gone on with Dread, I want to give it 4 stars
instead of
I gave it 3.5.
Oh yeah, so it's going up.
I really did like them. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, I honestly think my opinion of the movie went up as we were talking about
exactly.
it before the episode.
And that happened to me, and I ended up mentioning that. But I kept my rating the same.
Right.
But even after we talked about it, like the next day, like I think I've thought about that movie like for a couple of days after we did the podcast. I even considered rewatching it.
Yeah.
I think I started it again, actually.
It's a good one. I got an email I signed up for maybe I signed like a petition or something. I forget what it was, like an online type thing, trying to get a Dread sequel made. And I got an email from them, and they were saying they were going to consider October 1st the day of Dread or something like that, and they were like, go out and buy the movie again, which I think is kind of silly if you already own the movie to go out and buy it again.
True.
But they were wanting to get like kind of a whole bunch of people to go out and purchase the movie or to rent it on Vudu or something or iTunes, so that studios saw that like a whole bunch of people, they wanted to see like Dread kind of rise in the numbers.
Yeah.
To get the studio to be like, oh wow, look at that, people are getting Dread again, to see if maybe they could get a little push towards
October 1st. You say?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, I think it was October 1st.
Maybe I'll watch it on Netflix. I'm sure a lot of those people are going to stream it.
Probably do the same thing. Yeah.
So yeah, everyone on October 1st, if that's the case, double check.
I'm pulling up my email right now. Yeah, October 1st is the day of Dread. I'll read this email to you. The big day of Dread push last September was massively successful. Dread went straight to the top of the DVD and Blu-ray charts in multiple countries and sparking acres of press coverage, giving a huge boost to the petition. So we're happy to announce that we're designating Wednesday, October 1st as the Day of Dread 2014. So on Wednesday, calling on everyone to shout about Dread, buy it again on DVD or Blu-ray, get it back up those charts, watch it with friends, talk about it online, share it on Facebook, hashtag Day of Dread. Basically just try to get as much Dread talk online as possible.
Try to help the lack of sales that it had in the theater, which shocks me.
So that hopefully we can get a Dread sequel, which I would love to see.
Right, so, there's apparently talk that they might do a prequel, actually.
Right, yeah, I heard that, yeah. So even that, I guess, would be okay. As long as Carl Urban's still in it, I think it'd be okay.
I would like to see more with, what's her name?
Olivia Thirlby?
Yeah.
Anderson?
Yes, Anderson. I really think that she could bring a lot to the table. I mean, I liked her, and I'd like to see where they could go with her coming back to become a judge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so on October 1st, if you remember, put it down in your calendar, stream Dread, and show some support, and maybe we'll get a second movie out of them.
Pretty sweet. Well, let us know what you think about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. You can go to facebook.com/SM and SM podcast, or you can tweet us at Cinema Heroes, or you can go to the website, cinemaheroes.com. Leave us a comment. As always, if you have to make an Amazon purchase, check out cinemaheroes.com. Click on the Amazon banner. Doesn't cost you anything, but we get a little tiny percentage of it. It's always appreciated. I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Today we're going to talk about Star Wars episode... Oh, wait. I forgot my name. I always forget my name. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
Pause.
Oh. It's a bad start.